There is a moment that comes right before everything changes. Not the day victory arrives, the moment before, when the battle still rages inside you, when doubt still whispers, when your current reality still looks nothing like the future you've been fighting for. And in that precise moment, something begins calling you. Not with words you hear outside, with a voice that rises from depths you didn't know existed within you. And if you've been sensing that call lately, everything you're about to hear may explain why your life has felt so different recently. On the eve of your victory, the first thing you notice is an unusual restlessness, a stirring in your spirit that refuses to let you settle anymore. You've been working, praying, pushing forward for so long, but suddenly something shifts. The waiting becomes heavier. Not because you're giving up, because something inside recognizes you're closer than you've ever been. Your patience starts feeling different, not weak, concentrated. Like an athlete in the final seconds before the race begins. Every muscle tense, every sense heightened. And that intensity, that edge you feel, that's not anxiety, that's anticipation. Because your spirit often knows victory is near before your mind can see the evidence. One of the clearest signs you're standing on the edge of breakthrough is this. Old patterns that used to comfort you suddenly become unbearable. Habits you relied on for years no longer bring relief. Distractions that used to numb your mind now feel hollow and pointless. You try returning to what once felt safe, but your soul rejects it. And this creates profound discomfort, because you're caught between two worlds. Your old life no longer fits, but your new life hasn't fully formed yet. That middle ground breaks many people. They panic when familiar comforts stop working. They interpret the discomfort as failure. But what if that restlessness is actually evidence? Evidence that your spirit is preparing for something your physical eyes cannot see yet. The call you hear on the eve of victory sounds different from motivation. It doesn't make you feel excited in shallow ways. It makes you feel focused, determined, sober, almost fierce. You stop talking as much about your goals. You stop seeking constant validation. Something deeper takes over. A knowing that needs no permission from anyone, and this quietness confuses people around you. They wonder why you became so withdrawn. They ask if something is wrong, but nothing is wrong. You simply entered a zone where noise no longer reaches you the same way, where opinions no longer shake you as easily, where your mission becomes so clear that external validation feels unnecessary. Another sign appears in your thought patterns. You begin thinking like someone who already won. Not from arrogance, from preparation. You catch yourself planning differently, thinking bigger, considering possibilities that once seemed unrealistic. Your imagination starts constructing a future your current circumstances haven't proven yet. And some people might call this delusion. But every person who ever achieved something extraordinary first believed it internally, while reality still disagreed. Faith is not pretending problems don't exist. Faith is seeing the invisible before the visible catches up. And right before victory comes, faith becomes so strong that doubt starts losing its voice completely. The call you hear during this season often feels like urgency mixed with peace. Two opposites existing together. You feel urgency because you know your moment is approaching fast. There's no more time to waste. Every day matters now. Every choice carries weight. But underneath that urgency lives a strange peace, a knowing that everything painful you survived was preparing you for exactly this. That none of your struggles were random. That every delay taught you something essential. That every closed door redirected you toward the right path. And when those two forces, urgency and peace, merge inside you, you become unstoppable. Because urgency without peace creates panic. Peace without urgency creates complacency. But together, they create focus. On the eve of victory, your sensitivity increases dramatically. You begin noticing energies you ignored before. Conversations feel heavier. You sense hidden intentions faster. Your discernment sharpens. And suddenly, certain people feel uncomfortable being around you. Not because you changed into someone harsh, because your clarity makes pretending impossible. When someone is standing close to breakthrough, they naturally become more aware of anything misaligned in their environment. Fake relationships reveal themselves, hidden jealousy surfaces, fear disguised as concern becomes obvious, and this awareness, while sometimes painful, protects you. Because victory attracts attack. Success draws opposition. And before your breakthrough becomes public, life often teaches you who truly celebrates your growth and who secretly resents it. The call you hear at this stage also sounds like warning. Not a warning to stop. A warning to stay alert. Because the closer you get to victory, the stronger resistance becomes. Unexpected obstacles appear. Plans delay without explanation. People disappoint you in ways you never anticipated. And these moments test everything. Your faith. Your patience. Your commitment. Many people quit right here, right at the edge. They endure years of preparation, survive countless disappointments, build unshakable discipline. But when the final resistance arrives, they collapse. They interpret opposition as proof they were wrong. They read delays as rejection, and they walk away from their victory right before it would have appeared. But what if resistance is actually confirmation? Confirmation that you're threatening something. That your breakthrough is so close, the forces opposing you are making their final attempt to stop you. Another powerful sign you're approaching victory is this. You start feeling deeply tired, but strangely energized at the same time. Your body feels exhausted. Your mind feels stretched. Your emotions feel raw. But underneath all that fatigue lives a fire that refuses to die. You want rest, but you also refuse to quit. That contradiction defines the eve of victory. You're running on something deeper than surface energy now. You're drawing from reserves you didn't know you had, and every person who ever achieved something meaningful knows this feeling. The moment where tiredness and determination battle inside you simultaneously. Where you feel like you can't continue, and yet you know with absolute certainty that giving up is not an option. The call becomes louder when you start recognizing patterns from your past. You remember other times when breakthrough was near. Other seasons when resistance peaked right before relief came, and you begin connecting the dots, seeing how life works in cycles, how darkness often intensifies before dawn breaks, how silence often grows heavier before the answer arrives, how pressure usually increases before the release comes, and this recognition gives you strength. Because you've survived this before, you know how the story ends, not with destruction, with transformation. And that memory of past victories fuels your present faith, reminding you that if heaven brought you through before, heaven will bring you through again. On the eve of victory, something shifts in how you pray. Your prayers become less about begging and more about declaring, less about questioning and more about thanking. You stop asking if breakthrough will come. You start thanking heaven that it's already moving toward you. That shift in language reveals a shift in belief. And belief determines outcomes more than effort does. A person working hard while doubting will sabotage themselves unconsciously. But a person working hard while believing creates momentum. Nothing can stop. Because faith is not passive waiting. Faith is active preparation. It's setting up your life as if victory is guaranteed. Making decisions as if success is certain. Moving forward as if the door will open exactly when you reach it. Another sign you're close is this. Your tolerance for mediocrity disappears completely. You cannot settle anymore, even if staying comfortable would be easier, even if lowering your standards would reduce pressure. Something inside you refuses, because you've come too far to shrink now. You've survived too much to play small again. You've invested too many tears, too many sleepless nights, too much faith to abandon your vision when victory is finally within reach. And that stubbornness, that refusal to compromise, that's not pride, that's conviction. That's someone who knows their assignment is too important to abandon halfway. The call you hear also brings unexpected memories to the surface. Moments from your past where you almost gave up but didn't. Times when you had every reason to quit, but something kept you going. And those memories aren't random. They're reminders. Reminders of your strength. Reminders of your resilience. Reminders that you've already proven you can survive what tried to break you. And if you survived before without seeing the promise, imagine what you'll do now when the promise is closer than ever. On the eve of victory, you begin moving differently. Your actions become more deliberate. Your focus becomes laser sharp. Distractions that once pulled you away no longer have power over you. You become almost obsessive about protecting your time, your energy, your mental space. Because you understand something most people never realize. The final stretch requires everything you have. This is not the time to relax. This is not the time to celebrate early. This is the time to push harder than you've ever pushed while simultaneously trusting deeper than you've ever trusted. And that balance, discipline and surrender is what carries people across the finish line. The call becomes undeniable when your purpose feels heavier than your pain. When your mission outweighs your exhaustion. When your vision becomes so vivid that temporary discomfort cannot stop you anymore. That's when you know you've entered the final phase. Because on the eve of victory, sacrifice stops feeling like loss. It feels like investment. Discipline stops feeling like restriction. It feels like preparation. Isolation stops feeling like loneliness. It feels like focus. Every hard thing suddenly has meaning, and meaning makes suffering bearable. Another sign is unusual confidence. Not loud arrogance, quiet certainty. You stop defending your choices to people who wouldn't understand anyway. You stop explaining your vision to those who lack the faith to see it. You simply move forward. And there's power in that silence. Because the loudest doubters are often people afraid of their own potential. They criticize your risks because they never took theirs. They question your faith because they abandoned theirs. But their fear cannot become your ceiling. And on the eve of victory, you finally understand that fully. The call also brings a strange sense of detachment. You stop being emotionally dependent on how things look right now. You stop letting current circumstances dictate your internal state. You develop the ability to stand in lack while believing in abundance. To face opposition while knowing victory is forming. To walk through darkness while trusting light is coming. That emotional maturity, that ability to hold two realities at once is rare, but it's essential, because the final test before breakthrough is often this. Can you keep believing when nothing around you confirms your faith? Can you keep moving when every indicator suggests stopping? Can you keep trusting when delay feels permanent? On the eve of victory, your prayers often become the simplest they've ever been. No more elaborate explanations, no more trying to convince heaven. Just honest surrender, just pure faith, just this. I've come too far to turn back, I've survived too much to give up. I trust that what I cannot see is already in motion, and that simplicity carries more power than complicated prayers ever could. Because heaven doesn't need your perfect words, heaven responds to your sincere heart. Another sign appears when you start recognizing divine setups. Things that seemed like setbacks suddenly reveal themselves as strategy. Closed doors you cried over become the protection you needed. People who walked away become the clearing required for the right ones to enter. Delays you resented become the timing necessary for everything to align perfectly. And once you see this pattern, fear loses its grip. Because you realize nothing was wasted. Everything served a purpose. Even the painful parts. Especially the painful parts. The call you hear right before victory also demands one final thing from you. Complete surrender. Not giving up, letting go, releasing control, trusting that the same force that brought you this far will finish what it started. And that surrender is terrifying for most people, because control feels safe, but control is also an illusion. You were never in control. You were always being carried. And the moment you stop fighting that reality and start resting in it, breakthrough accelerates. On the eve of victory, you begin feeling something unexpected. Gratitude. Even before the blessing appears. Gratitude for the journey. Gratitude for the lessons. Gratitude for the strength you built. Gratitude for the character you developed. Gratitude for becoming someone capable of handling what's coming. And that gratitude is evidence your heart is ready. Because ungrateful people cannot sustain victory, but grateful people multiply it. The call becomes almost tangible when you start seeing confirmation everywhere, not coincidences. Alignment. Doors beginning to crack open, conversations happening at the right time, ideas flowing faster, opportunities appearing unexpectedly, and you recognize this is not luck, this is momentum, this is the universe responding to your faith, this is heaven confirming that you heard the call correctly. Another sign you're on the eve of victory is this: your past no longer defines you. Mistakes you once felt ashamed of become testimonies of growth. Failures you thought disqualified you become proof of resilience. Everything you survived becomes evidence that you were always meant to win. And that shift in perspective changes everything. Because victory isn't just about reaching a destination. It's about becoming someone worthy of staying there. The call you hear also sounds like responsibility, a reminder that victory comes with weight, that success is not only for you, that breakthrough carries assignment. And if that feels overwhelming, good. It means you understand the magnitude of what you're stepping into. It means you're taking this seriously. It means you won't waste what's coming. Because the greatest tragedies are not people who fail. They're people who succeed and abuse the gift. On the eve of victory, time begins feeling different. Days feel longer yet pass faster. You're simultaneously desperate for breakthrough and willing to wait for perfect timing. That paradox defines this season. You want it now, but you trust the process, you're eager for change, but you respect preparation, and that balance, hunger and patience is what mature faith looks like. Another powerful sign is unusual protection. Things that should have destroyed you somehow didn't. Attacks that should have succeeded somehow failed. Opposition that should have stopped you somehow only made you stronger. And when you look back, you realize something was covering you all along. Something was fighting for you when you were too weak to fight for yourself. Something was holding pieces together when everything felt like it was falling apart. And that realization brings tears, because you weren't surviving alone. You were being carried. The call reaches its peak when you finally stop asking when and start trusting now. Not because breakthrough happened, because you know it's happening. You feel it forming. You sense movement in places you cannot see. And that knowing becomes unshakable. People may doubt you. Circumstances may contradict you. Delays may test you. But nothing can remove the certainty planted inside your spirit. The certainty that whispers, your time is coming. Everything you've prayed for is already in motion. Every sacrifice you made is about to make sense. Every tear you cried is about to turn into testimony. On the eve of victory, you often feel more alone than ever before. Not because you are abandoned, because your journey reached a point where no one else can walk it with you. This final stretch is personal, sacred, between you and destiny, between you and heaven. And while that loneliness is painful, it's also necessary, because some battles are meant to be private. Some victories require solitude. Some breakthroughs demand that you face yourself, your doubts, your fears, your faith, with no distractions, with no one else to blame, with no excuses left. The call you hear in this final hour also brings a strange peace about who you became. You stop wishing you were someone else. You stop comparing your journey to others. You stop resenting the hard road you walked. Because you finally understand. That road built you. The pain shaped you. The struggle refined you. And the person you are now, scarred but stronger, exhausted but determined, broken open but not destroyed. That person is exactly who needed to emerge to carry what's coming next. Another sign you're approaching victory is unusual clarity about your purpose. The confusion that haunted you for years suddenly lifts. You know why you went through what you went through. You know what you're called to do. You know who you're meant to become. And that clarity removes all hesitation. You stop second-guessing yourself. You stop seeking permission. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You simply begin, because purpose revealed demands movement, and movement creates momentum. And momentum eventually creates breakthrough. On the eve of victory, your faith becomes your identity, not something you have, something you are. You stop trying to believe. You just believe, naturally, deeply, unshakably, and that shift is powerful. Because when faith becomes identity, circumstances lose their power to define you. You can walk through hell without becoming hell. You can face defeat without being defeated. You can stand in lack without believing lack is your destiny. Because your identity is no longer tied to what you see. It's anchored in what you know. The call you hear also demands one final choice. Will you trust the process completely? Will you surrender the timeline? Will you release control over how victory arrives? Because often breakthrough comes differently than expected, through different doors, at different times, in different forms. And if you're too rigid about how it should look, you might miss it when it appears. But if you stay open, flexible, trusting, You'll recognize heaven's answer even when it arrives wrapped in unexpected packaging. Another sign you're close is this. Your spirit becomes more sensitive to divine timing. You begin sensing when to move and when to wait, when to speak and when to stay silent, when to push and when to rest. That sensitivity is not weakness, it's wisdom, because victory is not only about effort, it's about alignment. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing. Just wait, just trust, just let heaven finish what it started without you forcing outcomes prematurely. On the eve of victory, you often experience one final test, a moment where everything you built seems threatened, where all progress appears to reverse, where hope feels stupid, where quitting feels justified. And this moment is intentional, not to destroy you, to reveal you, to show you who you really are beneath the fear, to prove your faith is real, to confirm your commitment is unshakable, and the people who pass this test, who keep standing when everything says fall, who keep believing when circumstances scream doubt, those are the ones who enter their promised season. The call becomes impossible to ignore when you realize you've already decided. Deep down, beneath all the fear and doubt and exhaustion, you've decided you're not quitting. You've decided you're finishing this. You've decided victory is not optional, it's inevitable. And once that decision solidifies, everything changes. Because committed people move differently. They don't plan for failure. They don't create backup plans for giving up. They burn the ships. They cross the line. They declare, I'm going forward, and whatever tries to stop me will fail. Another powerful sign is when your story starts making sense. All the random pieces, all the painful chapters, all the confusing delays. Suddenly they form a pattern, and you realize nothing was random. Everything was preparation. Every closed door was redirection. Every betrayal was protection. Every loss was making room. And that realization brings profound peace. Because if the past makes sense now, the present will make sense later. You just have to keep trusting, keep moving, keep believing that what feels chaotic today is actually divine order you cannot see yet. On the eve of victory, you begin feeling something unexpected. Excitement mixed with calm. You're eager for breakthrough, but you're not desperate anymore. You want it, but you're not begging for it. You believe it's coming, but you're not anxious about timing. That balance is evidence of maturity. Because desperation creates panic, but confidence creates patience, and patient confidence is unstoppable. The call you hear in this final season also sounds like invitation, not pressure, not demand. Invitation. Heaven is inviting you to trust one more day, to believe one more time, to take one more step. And that invitation is gentle, because the God who brought you this far is not angry that you're tired, not disappointed that you struggled, not frustrated that you doubted. That same presence is simply asking, will you trust me to finish what I started? Will you let me show you that your faith was not misplaced? Will you give me the honor of proving that everything you believed about your future was true? On the eve of victory, one truth becomes absolutely clear. You didn't survive everything you survived to quit now. You didn't endure all that pain to settle for less than what you were promised. You didn't build all that faith to abandon it at the finish line. And that realization becomes your strength. When doubt whispers, you're too tired, faith answers, I've come too far. When fear says it's not going to happen, belief responds, watch me. When circumstances scream, give up, your spirit roars, not today. The call you've been hearing, that relentless whisper, that persistent pull, that undeniable knowing, it's not random. It's confirmation. Confirmation that your time is here, that your season is now, that everything you've been preparing for is about to unfold. And yes, you might still be standing in the darkness. Yes, the evidence might still be invisible. Yes, the weight might still feel unbearable. But deep down, beneath all the noise, you know the truth. Victory is not coming. Victory is here, right now, in this moment. The moment right before everything changes. The moment where faith becomes sight. The moment where belief becomes reality. The moment where the warrior finally becomes the victor. This is your moment. And the call you've been hearing? That's the sound of destiny announcing your arrival.